And time now to take a look at what's making headlines across the globe. And for that, I'm joined in the studio by my fellow Australian, Diptyque Laurent. Hello, Diptyque.
Hi, Annette.
You're starting with the extraordinary leak by Politico of a draft majority opinion from the US Supreme Court that will restrict abortion rights right across the US.
That's right. This is information coming from Politico this Tuesday, which describes the draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito as a, quote, full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision that essentially legalized abortion nationwide in the U.S. Justice Alito calls the 1973 Roe versus Wade ruling, quote, egregiously wrong from the start, and says that its reasoning was exceptionally weak. I mean, there are two things here, Annette, the actual decision to overturn the ruling, but also the leaking of the draft majority opinion, which is really unprecedented in the Supreme Court's modern history. Interestingly, though, that 1973 ruling was also leaked to the to journalists back then, so there's a bit of similarity there. Anyway, the immediate impact of this ruling, Politico notes, would be essentially ending half a century of guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights, and essentially allowing each state to decide their own ruling on abortion. Polls show, though, that Americans have consistently said that they oppose the rolling back of that 1973 ruling.
And of course, this contentious issue playing against a backdrop of those upcoming midterm elections later this year, in which the Republican Party could in fact win balance of power.
That's right, and this is what the Washington Post is looking at. In that framework, anti-abortion activists have really been stepping up their game. They've been meeting behind the scenes to plan a national strategy if the Supreme Court, as this leak has indicated, does go ahead and roll back that ban on abortion. The discussion reflects, according to the Washington Post, what is seen as an emerging consensus in the anti-abortion movement to push for more hardline measures. Some, for instance, want not a national, currently the national 15-week ban on abortion. Some of them say it's not enough. Some want a near total ban, like a 6-week abortion ban that was recently passed in Oklahoma.
Now, to mark World Press Freedom Day, the Swiss newspaper Temps is featuring the editor of Russia's now banned Kremlin critic newspaper Novaya Gazeta.
That's right, Dmitri Mouratov. He's a Nobel Peace Prize laureate for his efforts to report independently in Russia, despite threats of kidnapping and murder as well. He met with Le Temps news team in Geneva today. It's no ordinary day, as you said. It's World Press Freedom Day, and in fact, Mouratov will be awarding 2 prizes for courage in cartooning, one to a Ukrainian cartoonist and one to a Hungarian cartoonist. In this interview, he looks back on a whole host of things, including that painful decision to shut down the Novaya Gazeta on March the 27th. He said he basically had no choice because after 2 warnings, he risked seeing his website disappear completely. And he says if that had happened, all the reports that they published in the first 34 days of the war would have also gone.
Okay, now for a bit of sports news. And changes to the pentathlon Olympic event is not going down too well, I understand, with athletes.
That's right. For nearly a century, the pentathlon event, Annette, at the Olympics has involved 5 sports: running, swimming, shooting, fencing, and horseback riding. Well, that's about to change, apparently, according to the International Federation for Modern Pentathlon. They've announced that they'll be removing the equestrian event, and in its place, they'll implement an obstacle course that could involve, climbing ropes and swinging from rings and even monkey bars. A far cry from the stately sport of horseback riding, indeed. But the pentathlon actually came under scrutiny last year in Tokyo when a German coach punched a horse who refused to jump. Indeed, the pentathlon has been forced to modernize several times because of waning interest. It was initially a 5-day event. They're hoping to make it a 90-minute event in Paris in 2024.
Okay, now finally from you, a parent's nightmare. A 4-year-old went for a joyride in his mother's car.
And crashed the car, I might add. And all's well that ends well, though, thankfully. A 4-year-old in the Dutch city of Utrecht not only snuck out in the early morning with his mom's keys, he went for a little drive through the streets before crashing the car. Bystanders naturally called the police after they saw a little boy in his pajamas and barefoot wandering on the streets. Police did not book him, but they took him to the station and gave him some hot chocolate. What's interesting is, so when they asked him to sort of explain what he'd done, he showed them that he put the keys in the ignition, he moved his left foot to the clutch, and he hit the accelerator. Dutch police have jokingly said that they've discovered the new Max Verstappen, the Dutch Formula One driver, and of course world champion.
Yeah, but still a worry for his mum and dad. Thanks for that, Dipti. And if you want to take a look at the stories that we've been talking about here on the Press Review, you can, of course, head to our website, that being france24.com. Time now for